Welcome to the Enchanted Ears podcast,
where we discuss anything and everything Disney.
I'm Angela.
And I'm Joe, and on today's episode, we are ranking the top canceled attractions that Disney never built. So all stuff that they announced, but then they canceled before they ever built it. So not stuff they opened and then closed.
Right.
But speaking of stuff they opened and then closed and then canceled after the fact, leads us into Disney news of the week. So before we get into the ranking all the canceled attractions, we're going to cover the news. The NBA experience, which was one of the shortest lived Disney experiences ever. Yeah. This was the old Disney Quest building at Disney Springs. If you don't know what Disney Quest is, we did a whole episode about it last year. So tune into that. We never got to experience it. And then after researching that episode, I felt really bad because it seemed like a lot of fun. Disney Quest did. It seemed something worth experiencing at least once. To kind of see what they were doing. They were trying something different.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it would be cool to go to. I would have had a fun time.
Yeah.
It's not a traditional Disney experience, but at the same time, I mean, yeah, I like, I like when they try something new, and I think this was an interesting idea.
Exactly. They had much grander plans for Disney Quest too than what we ultimately got. But we get into that all in the background of the episode and everything. But what replaced it, so they tore that building down, built a new building, the NBA experience, that lasted, I think it was less than 2 years because it closed during COVID, obviously kind of when all of Walt Disney World shut down, and then it just never reopened. And then Disney finally did announce that, hey, it's going to be permanently closed. But now Disney's finally filed permits to demolish that building. So they went through building this whole new building for an experience, only lasted a couple years. That building's basically sat there for a few years. I think there's been a shop or a restaurant or something in that building for a little bit, but nothing really in there. And so they're going to tear it down.
Yeah. It's
so kind of crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, for the amount of money that they spend building and then demolishing buildings, I wouldn't love to know the amount of money that they spend because it's you could just.
Well, I imagine the NBA probably paid a lot of the money to build that. I doubt Disney footed the bill for that.
They built it. Didn't they build it? I mean, it wasn't an already existing building though.
No, that's what I'm saying. They tore down Disney Quest to build a completely new building.
See, I was thinking you were saying it was in the same building that Disney Quest was in.
No, it's in the same footprint. Disney Quest, I think, was 5 stories. NBA Experience was only 2. So I imagine NBA footed a big portion of this bill. But yeah, so they're tearing it down. No word on if anything's going to replace it. I don't even know if Disney has plans for it. You kind of feel like they have something in mind because, again, the building's been sitting there for a couple of years. Why demolish it if you're just going to have it be empty space? So something's going in there. My thought is what would be great is if they put the Play Pavilion, or at least a portion of it, at Disney Springs. So the portion of it being a black box for Imagineering to show stuff off, to kind of try VR things. Kind of like what Disney Quest was a little bit, some interactive, again, experimental Disney stuff. Do a smaller scale of the Play Pavilion, a more updated Disney Quest in a smaller footprint, but put that there.
Yeah, I think it would be cool just to, again, see what Imagineering is working on. And I mean, from what I remember of Disney Quest, it wasn't that. It was more just video games.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But it was VR. You could use new technologies.
Yeah, it was more. Yeah, but this is we talked about Lanny Smoot, and he has that really cool floor that Disney was posting a whole bunch about, and it would be cool to actually be able to experience and see that in person in a Disney Play Pavilion. And also, Walt Disney World has announced that Tiana's Bayou Adventure will be opening this summer in Walt Disney World.
Yeah, so I think a little bit earlier than people were expecting. I mean, It was, 2024, but Walt Disney World's going to be opening in summer, which is still kind of a wide window.
Yeah.
Disneyland seems later, but they seem to be making progress. The water's running on it and everything.
And we got to see, the animatronic, which is such good news because we got to see that it is the full animatronic. We are not getting the blank slate face that we have
the projection
on Frozen
Ever
After. So so it is going to be fully animatronic face, which they have, I think, what is it, Hong Kong?
Well, it's basically what Imagineering's doing everywhere. So I think after Frozen Ever After, They moved away from that projection mapping face to a full face, because the new Frozen Ever After that they're building around the world has the updated animatronics, the Beauty and the Beast attraction in Tokyo. I think that might have been the first one to have like a fully articulate animatronic face. But yeah, Tiana, they kind of showed that animatronic. Looks incredible.
Really good.
So I think if that's the quality that's going into this, I think it's going to turn out to be a really good attraction. It doesn't seem like they're kind of cutting corners, because they mentioned like that's one of multiple Tiana animatronics that's going to be in the attraction. So I think it's going to kind of be a la Frozen Ever After, where you see them in multiple scenes. But I think, again, it seems like they're not using the projection mapping faces. They're using real faces, quote unquote. So it seems like they're doing it well.
And just to like reconfirm this, I'm pretty sure I have like kind of a grasp of what this is, but isn't this sort of like an extension of the Princess and the Frog story?
Yeah, it's post the story. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So see, that's kind of interesting, because like, whereas Frozen Ever After is the retelling,
right?
You have this, and I'm sure they're going to use like the popular songs from Princess and the Frog, but at the same time, we're going to get something fresh and new. We're going to see her restaurant and things.
I think the difference is Frozen Ever After was announced like 6 months after Frozen. So it was basically, people love Frozen, let's just give them the songs, give them what they love. Whereas they've been developing this Princess and the Frog attraction for a while. So they've had time to think of a storyline and not just say, oh, let's just retell the movie. Like, let's add something to it. So
what I would love to see? Just related. Frozen Ever After. We're getting another Frozen. We have Frozen 2. Frozen 2's music is better than Frozen 1's music. Let's knock down the back wall and let's add a Frozen 2 extension where we get to see more of that.
It is interesting that like these other Frozen Ever Afters that they're building are just an exact copy. Like to your point, like they haven't updated it to make it
like show yourself.
Yeah, to make it a blend of Frozen 1 and Frozen 2, like that sort of thing.
Into the Unknown, like those songs are and Lost in the Woods. I mean, those 3 songs are all bangers, and we're still, singing Let It Go. Nothing against Let It Go. Great song.
Yeah, but you could easily add Lost in the Woods, just have a scene with Kristoff.
Yeah.
It is interesting that they haven't like updated as they're building them out other places. Like you can't change Epcot, but like when you're doing these other places, it's interesting. So
yeah.
All right, so let's get into our main topic this week, ranking canceled attractions. So especially the past like few years, Disney has announced a ton of attractions that are going to be coming to the parks, and then they've either quietly never built them, or some of them have been kind of like outright canceled, and they said, hey, like this isn't happening. So we're not talking about necessarily like
something
rumors,
like Kite Tales that
actually
existed,
made it,
and then,
or even something like the Blue Sky stuff they're talking about with like Encanto and Zootopia and Moana, where it's like, hey, this is just concept art, but it never really was like a confirmed ride. So this is all stuff like they announced, hey, these attractions are coming. We're going to be building them. A lot of them are part of like the whole Epcot redo that they announced at D23 in either like 2017, 2019 as part of this whole transformation to Epcot, that we got very little of that. But just kind of like ranking some of the bigger ones that Disney announced that seemed really exciting, and then they never built.
So one of these was Mary Poppins that was supposed to be coming, and I believe this was this part of the Epcot?
Yeah, so this was in the UK Pavilion, and so this is kind of like the least. So we're kind of going in reverse order in terms of like ones we would have most liked to see and we're kind of most saddened by. So I think like Mary Poppins, it kind of never was like that exciting of an attraction anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like for a lot of people this would be really exciting. I like Mary Poppins, but I tend to gravitate towards more, again, animated and also animal related. So because it's more like live actiony with humans, this didn't really excite me as much, even though Mary Poppins is a great movie.
Well, I think the idea of it, and really it was going to be in the UK Pavilion, it was going to be like a flat ride, a spinner. So like there were some reports that it was going to be like the teacups or like a carousel. There were some reports that they were going to do like projection mapping, where it was going to kind of be like the scene where like Bert and Mary Poppins are dancing with the penguins. But then there was also some reports that it was going to be around like the new Mary Poppins movie, but I think it was going to deal with like some animation or something. But at the end of the day, it seemed like a very just basic attraction. And to your point, I think a lot of people like Mary Poppins, but I almost feel like if they built this, it would have been disappointing and underwhelming. So I almost think it's good they didn't build this one. Like I feel like a meet and greet almost would have just been better, like where you build the Banks's house as kind of the front, and then you go in and you get to meet Mary Poppins, and maybe she has her carpet bag and is just pulling a lot of stuff out of it. Like they could have done like some cool illusions to make it feel like, hey, this is really Mary Poppins as a meet and greet, which probably would have been better than this ride they kind of threw out there anyways.
Right. I think that one thing that Mary Poppins would have lent itself well to is kind of like what they have, like the Journey of the Little Mermaid, where you have all the hit songs from that.
Oh yeah,
you know, or
good.
like, or even Frozen Ever After.
Yeah, just do the hits.
Where you do the songs, and then you could put like an animatronic or something. And I feel like you should just get Tokyo Disney Pooh's Honey Hunt team working on that. Like they could create some sort of illusion where it looks like she's pulling giant things out of her bag. But I think that would have been probably a better utilization of that property than what it seemed like it was going to be.
Right. So I think ultimately this one got canceled probably because they realized it's not really going to move the needle that much anyway. So again, I think this is why this is like last on our list here, because I don't know that I was that excited about it anyways. Like I don't know really missing anything by not having this attraction.
Well, right. It's kind of like if, you know, they got rid of the Magic Carpet Ride or one of the Dumbos. It's like, but there's still other rides that are just like that. And so we're not gaining anything by adding those in, except for lessening the lines.
Correct. All right, so the next one on the list is another Epcot one. This was the permanent festival pavilion. And they made a big deal about this, that we're going to put a permanent festival pavilion in here because, you know, Epcot's all about the festivals. They're going to be able to do shows and stuff out of it. And this got scrapped. And I think, again, it's low on the list, but I think this one is kind of higher for me than Mary Poppins because I think this would have been a good addition to Epcot. To have a space at the front of the park where they could have had live entertainment, where they could have had, you know, a permanent like festival kitchen serving food. This would have like added a cool dimension to the front half of Epcot. And I think added a lot of stuff. I think probably why they ultimately canceled it is because it was going to be a lot of live entertainment. And that's like the first thing that gets cut.
They cut that
budget wise. And they decided, hey, maybe we don't want to do this. But they've kind of gone back and they're basically rebuilding the one building they tore down because they canceled this. And they're like, wait, we still need something here.
Is that by Beverly?
It's on the other side. It's on the other side.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're basically rebuilding that building. And it's like, why did you not just stick with the festival pavilion? Because I think the other thing that they were going to do is it was going to be like multi-storied. And so the idea is like corporations could rent part of this out for like private events, which seems like a no-brainer, like a good moneymaker for them. So it just seems like odd. It's just
odd on a lot of levels.
Yeah, of like why they canceled this. And because I think it's like a huge plus for Epcot.
I feel like the festival pavilion too could be created like those kitchens that they have in a lot of places where there's like a building and they house like various like test kitchens essentially.
Oh, yeah.
And then they can kind of switch them out every so often.
I think that's kind of the idea. Yeah, there'd be like a permanent kitchen in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, would that be in lieu of having the different festival like pavilions around the park?
No, I think the idea is you would always have this one. So like it would almost be like a year-round festival kitchen.
So this would be like some of the because some of those pavilions have been there for years and years, like the favorites.
They've become more
like staples,
semi-permanent. Like they used to tear those down and like move them, but I think now that they have so many festivals, they've become somewhat permanent. But I think this idea was just it was a larger space to kind of do that.
Because I could see them moving some of those places inside and then putting more test kitchen again, like tests outside, and then if they do well, then they could move inside as well.
Oh yeah, that's a good thought.
Yeah.
Well, it's not going to happen now though.
No, it's not.
Because it got canceled.
But just in my little mind, I feel like everyone just loves Epcot for the food and drinks. So
I mean, that's really what it is.
The more food and drinks,
yeah, it's become the festival park.
Yeah.
And again, that's another reason why it's odd of like, this is the festival park. This is what brings locals in to come eat. It brings a lot of people in to come to the festivals. So if you're going to cancel anything, why are you going to cancel something
that is advantageous?
That's going to add to the festivals and give you more space for the festivals.
Right.
It just seems strange. It just seems like a weird thing. I mean, the whole Epcot redo, just the way stuff got axed out of that, and like we have more on the list of things that we're going to go into Epcot. The whole thing is just kind of odd how it happened. And I know like the pandemic happened and that kind of like impacted some stuff, but like some of the decisions that were made, it's like they seem short-sighted. It seemed like, oh, we just need to save money now, but like I think you would have made money. Yeah, I think you would have made money long term on this. Or
we're gonna rip down a building and rebuild the same building essentially, so that it's like you're not even saving money. You actually cost yourself money, and then you didn't.
Yeah. Well, I think some of those buildings were so old, like they needed renovated.
Yeah, maybe they were just
sometimes
like
it is cheaper just to tear them down.
Maybe they were rife with asbestos, and they were like, let's just level the place.
Yeah, I mean, Florida humidity and everything, I think like
destroys
probably
stuff,
starting to rot it, and everything like that. So who knows? All right, so the next one is a rather old cancellation. So this harkens all the way back to the opening original couple years of Disneyland. And so Walt's idea was off of Main Street was to have Liberty Street, and it was going to be based on Revolution era buildings. There was going to be a variety of shops. They're going to have an apothecary, a glassmaker, print shop, insurance, cabinet makers. They're going to have the ringing of the Liberty Bell. And they actually announced this in 1956. Like they had signs up in the park, like, you know, under construction, or imagining like kind of like what they have now, and like coming soon, Liberty Street, all this sort of stuff. And then it got canceled. It never got built. Now, a lot of what was going to be designed there, an attraction based on the presidents, things around that revolutionary time building, we got in Magic Kingdom in Liberty Square. So we still got the Hall of Presidents. So we still got that attraction. We've talked a lot about this too. Like, no good idea ever dies at Imagineering. They always bring it back. But the Liberty Street, so it would have been a whole second street you could have gone to. So, you know, Main Street was kind of turn of the century. You're going to have a second street that was going to be kind of basically the birth of the nation time period. Just never ended up getting built.
All right, so I've been waiting for you to stop talking about that so I could say this one for me goes straight to the bottom of the list and falls off. I am glad they didn't build this. I have no interest. This sounds like it belongs in Colonial Williamsburg or something like that, and I don't need to see it in a Disney park.
Well, I think the interesting thing is because Hall of Presidents works well.
Yeah, I do too.
So it was going to be things like that, and I think why this one is a little bit higher on the list, because again, this was a larger expansion. It was like a whole street. This would have added...
But what would we have not gotten if this had been built?
Yeah, I don't know, because it's right next to Main Street. I mean, I think a lot of that space is used for, at least in Walt Disney World, like next to Main Street, that's all backstage. Like, there's really nothing there. That's kind of like the overflow gate, and it really is at Disneyland, too, because if you think about this, this was going to be, if you come in on the right, like basically where they have the characters, like Chip and Dale and Mickey and Minnie, it's basically backstage area that they would have taken. But for me, this was a larger expansion, and so it was a little bit more than, again, just like a Mary Poppins, like a carousel ride or something like that. You could maybe make the argument, hey, the Festival Pavilion is higher than this one.
It is.
But I think...
Hands down.
I think the other thing, too, is, again, this is Disney. Like, this was, like, kind of the first step in, like, that education-ness of Disney of, hey, we're going to ring the Liberty Bell. We're going to learn about the presidents. We're going to learn about the Constitution. Like, you were going to learn something in an entertaining way.
Yeah. Here's my idea, though. Go to Philadelphia. Like I said, I do not need this in a Disney park. I get enough of that American history going into the Hall of Presidents and going into the America Pavilion over in Epcot.
Well, like you would have had the Hall of Presidents, so you would have gone at Disneyland. Again, I mean, I'm with you. Like, I don't necessarily think it's a negative that this didn't get built, and I think it's probably some of the reasons why they didn't end up building it. But I think it's interesting because as soon as Disneyland opened, they were already talking about kind of bigger expansions like this. And it's almost somewhat higher on the list too, because it is like the first like larger thing that they announced and they put signs up for and they never built it. You know what I'm saying? Like we kind of think now of like, oh my gosh, Disney's announcing something and not building it. Like Walt would have never done. You know, like why are they doing this? Like why would you just cancel things like this? I mean, this happened in 1956, you know, that they announced it and a couple years later, it just quietly went away.
Yeah, I will say, though, I feel like the reason why Walt didn't build this is probably because he didn't have the money right away. And I feel like the reason why Disney doesn't build stuff now is they're like, investors say that this is going to cost too much money and we don't want to do it. I don't know.
True. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I feel like the reason why he didn't build stuff was just pure.
Well, and like he found something else that was...
Or struck his fancy a little bit more,
right, that you could do. So, all right, moving on. The next one is the Play Pavilion. So this is getting back to Epcot. This is going to be in the old Wonders of Life Pavilion. And now I'm not 100% sure that this has been officially canceled. Like I was looking to see, has this officially been canceled that Disney's not building this? It seems like they've, kind of quietly removed this from like all the announcements and the website and everything. So I'm pretty sure it's canceled. But I don't know that it's like
it's been phased out.
Canceled. Yeah. But what this was going to be is this was going to be like a kind of like a sandbox for Imagineering. And the idea was going to be like it was going to be interactive, like games and things like that. But it was going to be a place where Imagineering could come in, show you new stuff, like maybe the hollow tile floor or something like that we talked about a few weeks ago. And they could kind of test things out, get feedback, and then maybe every 6 months or a year, it would change out and you would kind of see what they're doing. So for me, I think that's a huge loss because it would have been so cool to see, like, what is Imagineering working on? Like, what are they cooking up that could eventually come into the parks? And I think it would have captured the imagination of so many younger people of, like, maybe I want to go into engineering or I want to be an Imagineer because I want to think of these amazing things.
Yes. So this is one of, I think, the downfalls of social media. I feel like they, especially with Lanny Smoot, like they're just like, we're just going to throw all this stuff up there on social media. We're going to show you this floor. But this is something like that floor that he invented. Like you said, this would go perfectly in this play pavilion. But the piece that they're missing is, there are kids on social media, but again, young kids, they're not even really allowed to have social media technically. So being able to see that and in the flesh, that is when you have that aha moment as a kid, potentially of, oh my goodness, the things that people are able to invent up. Like, I want to do this,
and like, that's
start
a job.
having ideas.
And like, hey, that's a job of thinking up that cool thing.
Well, right. And like, I feel like, any kid listening, I don't, in a way, you don't have to do the same thing for your entire life. There are so many possibilities. Research jobs, because it's really hard, and don't feel bad if you don't know what it is that you want to do with your life, because there are so many possibilities and it's overwhelming with all of the things. But if you have that opportunity to see that, it might be that moment where you say, that's what I want to do. So I think it's an epic loss, because going a bit back to what you said about Liberty Square, or Liberty Street. Yeah, right. Liberty Street. Liberty Square exists. Liberty Street, this is that education piece that I think is really needed. And it's also very timely, considering that education a lot of times is really pushing for STEM. And so, putting that science up front and showing people, hey, this is like what science can do and engineering can do.
This is why math's
working
important.
Your way
like, how many
problems.
Kids are like, why do I have to learn this math? I'm never going to use it.
Well, right.
Yeah,
and
you can use it to
it's
be
a
an
very
Imagineer.
nice practical application of some of those things. So yeah, I think this is a massive loss that they did not end up, formally building it. And again, maybe they are still, but it seems like it's been closeted.
I think the interesting thing too is the Wonders of Life Pavilion has been sitting vacant for years. Like it, I mean, Epcot has been going through this transformation. It's still not done. Like they have more construction walls up and they're moving on to the other path. We talked about the Festival Pavilion, like they're rebuilding a building. Like it's going to be a while till that opens. And you have this pavilion that's just been sitting vacant for, I mean, at least a decade, as long as we've been going in our adult lifetimes to Disney World, which has been a decade plus. There's been nothing in it. And it's kind of like,
what are you talking about? It's been like 5 minutes.
But
you might be old, but I'm not.
It's kind of like what, like, at a certain extent, I think this is where sometimes like people get upset. It's like, what is Disney doing? Like why do you just have this stuff sitting vacant? And I think where it's like, people talk about like Universal's building a lot and Disney needs to respond. Yeah, it's great if they add new lands and stuff like that, but like there's so much stuff that they just have that they're not even using or utilizing properly. It's like, just fix that. Like, just put something back in there. Like, you have this building, you're just letting it sit and not do anything. Like, it seems crazy sometimes, like when you think about that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I do wonder, like, what is the reason? Like, is the building itself not safe and they have to fix it up and they need funds for that?
I think it's cost. I mean, I just think it's cost. Like, they closed the attraction and again, they were going to put the Play Pavilion in there, and like it all comes down to money. Again, like, it's just, where are they going to spend their money? I mean, the next one I want to talk about is the Spaceship Earth redo. I mean, this was announced, and this is like, there's been reports of like Spaceship Earth. I mean, it's an older attraction. Everybody knows it needs updated. It's been a while since it's been updated, and they showed off this great concept art. It's going to be all about like storytelling. They were going to put projection mapping, and there's going to be kind of like lights that like led you through like each of the pieces and kind of connected everything. And I love Spaceship Earth, and I think Spaceship Earth is a great ride, and updating it would have been phenomenal. And then again, it's like they talk about this every couple years, and they announce this big thing finally as part of, the whole redo of Epcot, and it's going to be, ready for this 40th anniversary celebration and stuff like that. And they just go, nope, we're not doing it.
Well, also the thing about Spaceship Earth that, kind of, it's frustrating, even though Spaceship Earth is not my favorite ride in Disney World, that is one of, I think, the piece de resistance of Disney World, because it's the only place that has it. Like, that is a ride that is unique to Walt Disney World Resort.
Yeah.
And so, in a way that Disneyland sometimes adds extra magic to their stuff, it's like, why can't we take this ride that, it's not a high thrill ride, but it is a cool like ride mechanism and everything, and it ends with computers being invented. Right. I mean, they were invented a long time ago.
They talked about they were going to update like the ending to kind of like push it a little bit forward and stuff like that. I mean, it definitely could use an update. Yeah, some projection mapping. Again, nothing like too crazy. I mean, projection mapping's not that hard to do. They've been doing it for years. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like, it's frustrating whenever like something like that goes away.
See, I can see like what they have over in Disneyland for Big Thunder Mountain Railroad with like the fire type stuff, like the burning of Alexandria.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, so I mean, it's just, again, it's just little things like that where it's just like this. I don't think this would be this difficult. You can just talk to Jeremy Irons, get him to re-narrate.
Oh, go back to him.
Go back to. I think who is it? It's Dame.
It's Judi Dench.
Yeah, Dame Judi Dench. It does it. Love her, but I mean, come on. Let's bring Scar back, and let's have him narrate it. Again.
Yeah, again. So that one hurts. I feel like that's not getting updated. I was very excited about that one, and again, it wasn't like a crazy update, but I was really excited about that one, and that one, that hurts to have that one kind of get canceled. I mean, most of the stuff that they announced for Epcot got canceled. We got Moana. That was basically it, and we got Guardians, obviously, which was a good addition over there. So, all right, this next one was an attraction that was supposed to be part of Galaxy's Edge, and this like sounds super exciting. So you're going to be able to ride a Bantha, and there is concept art. Like whenever this was announced, like when Chapek was on stage announcing this,
what did this look like?
So you can look up the concept art, and it's basically, they had it whenever he announced Galaxy's Edge, and it was a giant Bantha. And so the idea was...
So this is like how circuses used to have you ride an elephant?
Yeah, because a Bantha is basically, it's kind of like a woolly mammoth, basically, for Star Wars. Like an elephant, but it's got a lot of like fur and stuff on it. And the idea was...
So, a woolly mammoth?
Yeah, a woolly but I don't think they have...
No, they're not quite.
They don't have like the trunks.
Yeah, they're not quite a woolly mammoth, but similar.
But the idea would be that you would get on, I think it was like 16 to 20 people. You'd get on the back of this, and it would walk you through Batuu. Like you would walk through the markets. Like you would go kind of like from one end to another and to walk on. So I think they designed it, or they made them, they were like trackless ride vehicles. And so they built a Bantha around a trackless ride vehicle to have it navigate through through the square and everything.
So this would be Batu's version of the Main Street vehicles that you can take down Main Street.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is cool. So you could basically use them as a very slow form of transportation from one end to the other.
Yeah, I don't know if it was point to point or if it was a loop.
It would be cool if it was point to point, though.
It would have been cool.
Yeah.
So I think the issues with this obviously are...
It would help with immersion, too, there.
It would 100% help with immersion, and we'll get to that in a second. But I think the issues here with this was the space. Just like... Batu is not very big. Like, it would be hard to navigate these through. Like, you talk about the Main Street vehicles. Like, it's hard to navigate those. So to navigate
those streets are still wide enough that there's plenty of sidewalk space. But you are right.
But if you had a trackless ride vehicle, you now have to have it stop for pedestrians and stuff like that. And I think capacity issues too. Again, if like only 15 or 20 people are riding this, like you can maybe only have 2 or 3 banthas at a time. Like, I think this would take a lot of, like, it'd be a long wait. So I think those were some of the issues with this. I do think though, what you mentioned, like immersion, like the one thing that's great about Pandora is the plants all look alien. Like, there's not, there's immersion there without having to like do anything too fancy. Just the foliage and the stuff they have, the noise, and you don't have that in Galaxy's Edge. I feel like having a bantha there would have added such another level of immersion. Would have been insane.
Well, you got to think too, over in Pandora. Now, I do think that they could do a good job with like getting some of those critters there. They could have even built little animatronics that pop in and out of some of the plants. But if we got that bantha and say it comes out of what they now are currently not using, the door to the Halcyon,
right?
And it came out and it was like behind, like a fence or something, and you can go up and see the bantha, see a bantha feeding, something like that. Kind of like over in Paris, how they have the Sven that they feed the carrot to. Yeah, that blew my mind.
Right. Yeah, even I'm with you. Like, I don't even think you need to have this as a ride. I think just having a bantha there.
Or like Universal has the raptors.
Yeah. Or even like, Paris again, like the dragon under the castle. Just have a bantha meet and greet that would add a level of immersion. Because I get the complications with having this as an attraction that you're trying to navigate through. Like, I can see why that's not going to work. But to have it there, I think if you kind of already designed, like, why not build one and just have an interactive bantha experience?
Right. Like, see, the one thing about Galaxy's Edge that doesn't work for me, thinking about it, and I really have never thought about this too much, but one thing that I really love and appreciate about Star Wars is the diversity of creatures that you see all throughout Star Wars.
Right, and you have
but
none
when
of
you
that.
walk into
Batu,
you don't see anything that is not a humanoid. And I'm like,
they have a couple, like, in the shops. They have a couple. They have a loft cat. They have that eyeball alien that's in the water tank.
But I'm talking
about very subtle.
But like, I would love to see somebody in the marketplace who was a Twi'lek, or somebody in the marketplace that is one of those really crazy looking things.
Have Wani. They built a Wani, a Rodian.
Have some Rodians. Like, have a couple different people walking around in a different sort of mask that aren't like a Star Wars character, they don't have to be Hera Syndulla, but just somebody that is just a regular person, and have them be their own character specific to Batu, that people are like, hey, I'm gonna go to the Twi'lek's marketplace and buy something off of the Twi'lek.
I don't even think it has to be their specific market, but to your point, just have those, people there. Just have those people there. They don't even have to necessarily be set characters, but just kind of like add in some of that like diversity, or even make some animatronic creatures. Like, just add something in there. Like, you don't really see that kind of anywhere, and I think it's missing that, and it's all very muted colors. Like, nothing really pops. Like, it. Well, yeah. You don't feel off-world when you're on there. You walk into Pandora, you feel like you're on an alien planet. You walk into Galaxy's Edge, you don't necessarily feel like you're on an alien planet.
Because it is such like a gray and brown palette, like Twi'leks, Rodians, and I'm trying to think of. There's even like that one, she's like in the gang, and she has like she's I think pink and has like a mohawk. But there's plenty of races in Star Wars where there are these crazy like cool colors that would be excellent just adding a color pop to the land itself. So another thing that they ended up announcing, I think they even had like walls up saying it was coming, is the Atlantis Expedition. So this is over in Disneyland. This would be the re-theme for the submarine voyage, which ended up becoming Nemo. And it sounded like a really interesting ride. Now, this goes along with the movie Atlantis, that movie itself, and I'm sure this is why they canceled it.
They had high hopes for that movie.
Yeah, they had high hopes for the movie.
And they thought it would fit in really well,
and then it
flopped. It didn't do very well.
And it is really interesting to me because, I don't know, maybe I have blinders on when it comes to Disney, but I thought that was
100% you do. We have a Disney podcast. That goes without saying.
But I thought it was a cool movie. Like, I liked the, like, kind of, because it has, like, that journey to the center of the earth kind of feel to it. It has, like a sci-fi feel. It was very different, and maybe that's why people didn't like it very much, because it was kind of out there, very fantasy driven.
It was that weird time too in Disney animation where, you know, they had come off the golden age and they had a couple movies that didn't do well, and then it started kind of like what we are now, of like, Disney's not good anymore. Disney's lost a step, and some of that is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, I think even like recent Disney movies, you're kind of seeing that where like they're not doing well at the box office, like Elemental. Oh, Pixar's losing a step. No, it eventually kind of it stayed at the box office.
So false.
Yeah, it stayed at the box office, and it ended up doing pretty well, and it is a good movie.
It's the best Pixar movie.
Right,
but I would fight somebody on that.
But that's what I'm saying. But like people look at the box office and just go, it didn't make money, it must not be good. And I think, you know, Atlantis came out in that time where they were just kind of struggling, and so just, it's not good, it's not up to Disney standards. And I think some of that just kind of like, you know, it kind of colors the history of it too, where it's like, they're just not doing well, they don't make good movies anymore. We're kind of in that of like, Disney doesn't make good movies anymore. That's not true,
right?
But kind of people think that and believe it, and it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. So one of the conceits of this ride is that you are able to reach out of the submarine window and grab like gems and like coins and stuff, which I think that would be a really fun
make
ride
it interactive,
mechanic. Because I mean, you have like the shooting games that like Toy Story Mania that are a lot of fun, and I think that people really enjoy that game aspect. So I could see this particular one being a lot of fun.
It's better than just sitting there. Like the Nemo now,
it's very passive.
Yeah, you just kind of sit there. I mean, the other thing is they had plans and they had concept art of building a giant volcano where, you know, where this attraction is. The monorail was going to go through it. And the idea was actually the submarines were a way of transportation to take you into the volcano. They were going to take you to Atlantis. So you would get in the submarine, kind of like in the movie, you would go to Atlantis and then be able to disembark, I think, inside the volcano, and Atlantis was going to be in there. And then you could explore that and then kind of take the submarine and come back.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty ambitious attraction, I feel like.
And again,
especially
it reminds
in
me
that
of
space.
Tokyo Disney Sea. Because of like they have that
because
that
of the
giant
the journey to the center of the
volcano
Earth.
type thing.
Yeah, but I mean, it would have been super ambitious to have like the submarine ride almost be two rides, where it's a transportation ride, but then you have a walkthrough or some sort of additional attraction inside this volcano. But you're right, they closed I think it was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and they had like, you know, tarping around the load station that basically said like Atlantis coming. And then it sat there for years and years and years and nothing happened. And they eventually made it Finding Nemo, because Finding Nemo did well. But just seeing that concept art of that volcano and just the scale of it, especially like next to the Matterhorn,
right?
It would have been insane to have kind of like those two like mountains right next to each other. But yeah, this sounded like a really cool way to have a submarine experience. Like it fit in well with the movie. I mean, it fits in with Nemo because Nemo's underwater, but like there's no submarine in Nemo. But like in Atlantis, like there's submarines and stuff like that it would have been a really cool experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is actually a massive loss that they didn't end up building this, even despite, because I feel like if they had built a really cool ride, which it sounded like they were going to do, I think
would have made the movie better.
Yeah, I think that people would go back and be like, wow, this is awesome. We should check out this movie again. And then they would realize like, oh no, that movie was really cool. We were just very hard on it. So yeah, I think that's the problem. Yeah.
I feel like it's odd too, because if you think about like early Disney, I feel like a lot of the attractions they made weren't necessarily, it wasn't about what's the most popular movie. Like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. I mean, that's not like that's a well-known Disney film, but that's a very popular attraction. You know, like obviously Snow White is and stuff like that they made, but you know, now it's like, yeah, if it's not $1 billion hit like Frozen, we're not making an attraction about it because it's not popular enough, you know? And so this was kind of towards that transition where they started being like, we have to have proven IP before we put money into a redo. So it's like, yeah, use Finding Nemo. That made $1 billion. You know, Atlantis didn't.
Yeah.
But definitely, yeah, I mean, the scale of this, I think this is a much bigger loss in terms of canceled attractions. This is why it's our tops. We're getting to the top 3 here. So that's the third one. The next one on the list is the Theather on Main Street. So they announced this at D23 in 2017. They were going to build a Broadway style theater on Main Street in Walt Disney World in Magic Kingdom. And why I think this is such a big loss is because Disneyland has a Broadway theater. Basically every other
they decide to use once every 17 years.
Right. I mean, that's another story. But basically every other Disney park,
they run something for two seconds.
Yeah, and then it's gone. But then like basically every other Disney park around the world has like a Broadway style theater, it has a Broadway style show, and there is something about that live entertainment factor that it adds extra magic to those parks, and Magic Kingdom is missing this. And when they announce it, it's like, this is a no-brainer. This is a great idea. Yep. It's going to be a place that's going to take thousands of people, so it'll help kind of capacity issues. It's live entertainment. Like it's going to be good. It's going to be well done. It's going to be highly well received. It made sense on so many levels. Was so excited about it. And this was another one that just quietly went away. I don't know if they ever officially canceled it, but they announced it at D23 in 2017, and then basically almost immediately nothing happened with it.
Yeah. It actually is interesting to me because thinking about this, Walt Disney World has very few of these live type shows, and it is actually it's very interesting to me to think the Bird Show is one of the few shows that I can actually think of
all the shows too.
Yeah,
the
like
Bird
but
show.
the Bird
My
Show,
favorite show.
But like that, the Bird, actually there's 2 different kinds of bird shows, right? Because there's the one in front of the Tree of Life, and then there's the one in the actual pavilion.
Yeah. And then you have the Beauty and the Beast stage show and Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
are kind of the other 2
that is
shows.
true. Yeah.
But it's interesting. True. It's like it's Animal Kingdom and it's Hollywood Studios.
I guess that they figure that those 2 parks are like more half day kind of parks. Like Animal Kingdom, if you think about it, like it's a zoo. If you want to go there and spend time looking at that, then you're going to take a lot of time. But if you're going to ride and maybe look at a few animals, you don't necessarily need to spend all day there. So you need some sort of attraction to kind of keep people there and engaged. Now, the one thing about that one too that I will say is it is educational. Same thing as actually the Indiana Jones show, because there's an educational aspect you, like,
to how movies
like movie magic, plus, and then the Bird Show, of course, about animal training and
teaches you how scary birds are.
No, it doesn't. Teaches you how awesome they are and so cool.
How they're gonna fly real close to your head. But
like, and how much control they have over themselves.
Yeah, it is
and
cool to
their
see
skills,
the birds.
and I mean, those live demos.
How trainable they are and
you
stuff.
You have people already working with them anyway. It's just you're making them come out and like talk about it. But I do think that part is so important because, again, when people see something, and this is, again, my argument for why zoos, even though people are like, no, these animals should be in the wild, they're important for conservation purposes, and of course it's better for them to be in the wild, but also humans do not attach necessarily to things that they do not see. And people don't usually sit at home all the time and watch like wildlife documentaries.
And a lot of those animals, I feel like, too, are rehabilitated. Like they can't go back out into the wild. They came from
somewhere else. And obviously, like, they do, a lot of them are like free flying, so they do have a pretty high quality life. And I think that is really, seeing those demonstrations, it makes you have like a bigger spot in your heart for them and want to do more to protect them and conserve them. So
what's interesting now too is with the talk of Epic Universe, the talk is that Disney's plan to counter Epic Universe is live entertainment, which I find really interesting because live entertainment's the thing they always
shy away from.
Yeah, and they always cut, but it seems like because they have no new attractions and there's no way they can build a new ride that's going to be open in 2025 in a year. Like, there's not anything that's going to be open to combat that their plan is to pump more live entertainment in parks because people love it. I mean, let's face it.
It does make
love
sense.
the interactions. People love the live entertainment. And again, they can keep it open for a year or two to kind of keep people in Disney. And then again, when they kind of don't need it anymore, it's an easy thing to cut. So it seems like if they would have had this, like this would have been great to have a brand new show, you know, debuting in 2025, because it's a lot easier to put together a new show than it is, you know, build a new
ride,
to build a new attraction,
which is billions and billions of dollars. So
well, I hope it's not billions of dollars.
I don't know. I feel like it costs so much stuff,
hundreds of millions,
so much money for them to build anything nowadays.
All right, but the top canceled attraction on our list, and this might be a 2-time canceled attraction before we're done here, but is the Avengers Attraction at Avengers Campus at Disneyland. So this is the original one. This is the Quinjet Battle in Wakanda. They announced this in 2019 as part of phase 2 of Avengers Campus. And it was going to be, they called it a Quinjet attraction, but it seemed like with the concept art, you were somehow like flying in like a jetpack type thing. Like they talked that it was going to be this whole like brand new ride system, state of the art. And it was going to be this idea of like you were going to Wakanda and there was basically a battle in Wakanda with like a bunch of different villains and you were helping the heroes and stuff like that. And then in 2022 at D23, they announced we have this awesome new Avengers attraction that's coming. It's this multiversal attraction
with
King Thanos.
Yeah, Thanos.
And it seemed like it was going to be in now more of like maybe a trackless ride car, but kind of those type of cars. So it seems like this original one got canceled because they've announced a new one that's going to take place over there. But this original one, the fact that it was going to be a new ride system and a really awesome story in a cool place like Wakanda.
Wakanda is a place I want to go to.
And the issue is with Avengers Campus, and this is my problem with it, is it's basically like every day. Like Marvel has so many awesome locations, you know, either on Earth in their movies or in the cosmos, and they pick like basically like a New York City style thing. So having it go to Wakanda, it's a much more interesting location to have a ride in, and you're going to have this new ride system. It seems so much cooler. Now it seems like it's going to be this multiversal battle, probably going to be a lot of screens because you're going to have like 500 characters in it. You're not going to make all those animatronics, and it's just in a regular ride car. Now, hopefully like they go Rise of the Resistance budget on this thing, and it is trackless ride. It's somehow pushing the medium forward. You know, it's incorporating different ride mechanisms within a trackless ride. You know, they do some impressive animatronics, some impressive scale, because so far I feel like Disney has just botched what they've done with the Avengers. Even though like the Avengers, like if you look at Star Wars has made $12 billion at the box office. Or $10 billion, I'm sorry, over 12 films. So an average of about $833 million a film. The MCU's made $30 billion. Now that's over 33 films, but that's $900 million. So they average slightly more than the Star Wars film. So it's not like you can't say they're not making money, we shouldn't invest in this, but like the amount of money they put in Galaxy's Edge and Rise of the Resistance to have this like revolutionary new ride, and they build Avengers Campus, and it's a retheme of Tower of Terror and a Spider-Man attraction, and that's it. And then they're building these all around the world, and it's in Paris, it's a retheme of a roller coaster and the Spider-Man attraction. Like, where is the state-of-the-art ride for Avengers Campus? And this original Quinjet attraction seemed like it was going to be it, and it just quietly went away, and they announced a new one. Like, we're not going to remember they announced another one 3 years beforehand.
What irritates me about this, and I understand Disney likes to, they'll make something and they can, so that they can then design it once, pay people to basically make it once, and then they just plant it elsewhere.
It's cheaper because all those development costs then get spread across multiple parks.
Right. But then it is like frustrating because, like you said, you have all these really cool locales. Like, I would love to see Asgard, you know, over in California, and then in Paris for them to build Wakanda or something. Like, you can do these different places, and that way whenever you go to the different Disney parks, you get to experience
it's a little bit different,
something different.
Yeah, I think my point too, I mean, you know, they did build multiple Rise of the Resistance. They have one on each coast, so they spread those costs out. But it's like, Web Slingers is nowhere near the level of Rise of the Resistance. And that's the one they're copying everywhere. And it's like, yeah, it's a fun ride, but it's not revolutionary enough to be like, we're going to put this everywhere and people are going to get excited about it. You know, like that's the thing. It seems like they've not fully committed to Marvel. And I really like the MCU. And again, it's made a ton of money in the box office, so you can't even say that. And it's somewhat frustrating as a fan of the MCU and a fan of Marvel that it seems like they kind of like are not fully committed into actually making it something exciting at the theme parks.
Do you think they hesitate because they know that the characters themselves, they're not going to be able to be those particular actors and things forever? Like Thor isn't always going to be Thor because
Iron Man wears a mask. Spider-Man wears a mask. Black Panther wears a mask. I mean, a lot of these people wear masks. I mean, they have Thor in the parks. They have Loki in the, like they have a lot of the face characters too. That don't
but
look
I'm
like
saying
their
like if for them to put them into like a ride,
an attraction,
like maybe they are saying like
do the ones that wear masks, do villains like Thanos and Ultron, like you could definitely do it. I think what happened was I think they had an idea for an attraction that used a new ride system, and they either found out
they priced it out.
They either priced it out and it was way too expensive, or it was not fully developed, and when they went to do it, they go, we can't scale this up to have like it works when we're doing it in Imagineering and there's two of us doing it, but when we need to run this thing 16 hours a day every day for thousands and thousands of people, it's just not going to work. So that's what I think happened. It was either price or they couldn't get it to work, because again, you look at the car now, it looks like it's a trackless ride car, and they know they can get that to work, and they know they can do screens and some animatronics. And so I think they fell back on that. Now, again, if they do, Rise of the Resistance is a trackless ride vehicle, but it's like the greatest use of it ever. So if they put that kind of money into it, I think it's going to be phenomenal. I just fear they're like, we're going to have every character and every villain, every point of the multiverse. And it's like, if you have 300 characters in this thing, it's going to be so chaotic. You're going to be like, what is even happening here? Like, it's not going to be, like a coherent story. And whereas like, Rise of the Resistance doesn't really use screens that much. It's a lot of sets. It's a lot of animatronics. And so I feel like they're not going to go to that level. And so it may be a fun ride. It may be a great ride. Again, I'm waiting for them in this D23 to announce, hey, we got a new Avengers ride coming out for y'all. That other one we announced 2 years ago. Nah, that's not happening. We're doing another one.
Yeah, I agree. That's the thing that's tough about these two is it's like, I want to go to a D23 really bad. But at the same time, I'm worried I go to a D23, I get all hyped on something that they say, or like the last D23, it was like they gave everybody something to placate them, and then they kind of just moved on about their days. So that is why I feel a little reticent about it, because it's like I don't want to get my hopes up and then have them dash them.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's tough. I feel like it would be really hard to be an Imagineer sometimes. I've always thought of like the romantic side of being an Imagineer, but I do feel like there's probably an aspect of it that's really difficult, because I feel like there are times where they might invent something really cool or be tasked with a project or a ride where they're told like, hey, like try to develop this, we're going to build this, and they build something that they're super proud of, just for that thing to be told, like for them to be told like, oh, we're actually not going to build this.
It's never going to see the light of day.
Yeah. Because I feel like that would be so heartbreaking.
You have to be okay with that.
Yeah, you've taken
failure.
Years of your life potentially to develop these things, and you're like passionate about it, and
it never happens.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's number one for me in terms of canceled attractions. Would love to hear what our listeners think. If you're watching this on YouTube, let us know in the comments, or let us know on our Instagram at Enchanted Ears Podcast. Which of these canceled attractions do you wish most that Disney would have built? But that wraps up the show for this week. I want to thank everybody again for listening. If you've not done so, please leave us a rating or a review. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. That really helps, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks for lending us your ears.
Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you here next Monday.
Bye-bye.